and see the screen all right. So you should see the Twitter 101 screen and should be able to hear my voice. So if anyone can send me a message, just let me know whether you can hear me all right, and then we will get up and going. Perfect. Good to go. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate that. All right, thanks so much, guys. There always seems to be some sort of technical difficulties with these webinars, doesn't there? Anyways, so welcome to Twitter 101. So as you can see here, my name is Wade Patterson, and I'm the Social Media and Communications Coordinator with RE/MAX of Western Canada. So through this webinar, you have the ability to ask questions, which I'll try to get to at the end. But if you ever have any questions related to social media or communications in the future, please be sure to contact me. So my email is wpatterson@remax.net, and that's Patterson with 1 T. And you can also call our head office in Kelowna. The number is 1-800-563-3622 and ask for Wade. And I appreciate any feedback you might have on today's webinar, such as, Wade, there was technical difficulties today, or anything like that. And of course, I'm happy to hear suggestions for future webinars as well. So I'm really excited today because this is the second webinar I've done since joining RE/MAX last August. And I'm scheduled to put on a lot more social media webinars this year, almost on a monthly basis. So I plan to post recordings of these webinars to our YouTube channel for your reference as well. The first webinar I did, it was called Social Media Tips and Advice for Agents, and that's already posted there. So you can find that by searching YouTube for RE/MAX of Western Canada's channel, and it's under our list of videos. And be sure to check our Region Update blog calendar as well to see what future webinars are upcoming. So there's Design Center 101 and Lead Street 101 webinars that Chris Jameson puts on a regular basis, and the social media webinars will focus on a different topic every time around. So a few topics you might expect to see are things such as Facebook for beginners, how to post great social media content, etc. But today's webinar is all about Twitter for beginners. So I'm going to go through how you can navigate around the site and even post your own tweets. And PowerPoint presentations can be a great tool. However, for this type of webinar, I want to take you right into our actual RE/MAX of Western Canada Twitter account so you can see how it looks in real time and how Twitter kind of works, as opposed to slides just with screenshots. So hopefully when I move to the live website example, we don't have any glitches or anything like that, but we'll roll with those as they come. Before we do that, just a couple of quick facts about Twitter. So according to Twitter's own stats, there are approximately 284 monthly average users on the site, and there are about 500 million tweets sent out per day. One stat that's really interesting is that 80% of active Twitter users are on mobile. So tons of people who are accessing Twitter are doing so through their smartphones. One analogy I like to use personally to describe Twitter for people who maybe are confused by it, don't know what it's about, is that it's kind of like one massive cocktail party that everyone in the world is invited to. So within this party, there are thousands or even millions of separate conversations going on all through this massive room, which you can add your voice to and you can be a part of, or you can choose to just go by and listen to these different conversations as well. So through Twitter, you find conversations you want to be a part of through things called hashtags. So I know when I started using Twitter, hashtags were something that confused me a lot. But to put it in simple terms, there's a few uses for them, but to put it in simple terms, I think when they're used best, they're simply there to help people find a certain conversation. Or you can use a hashtag as well to add your voice to a conversation. So you'll notice on the bottom of these PowerPoint slides, in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a hashtag there. And it's hashtag RMXSocial. RE/MAX Social. And that's a hashtag I've been using for all these social media webinars. And the idea for including this is that once you get going and you're a little bit active on Twitter, you can actually send out a tweet, include that hashtag, and it creates almost like a real-time commentary on this very topic or this webinar. So if we have about 30 attendees currently watching this, if everyone was using that hashtag, sending out tweets, it just adds another element to the conversation. It's other people putting their input, and it's just kind of a cool way to use it in that sense. And also sticking with the massive party example, I guess, Another way you can use Twitter is by choosing to walk up and speak to people at this party. So in Twitter, we call directly talking to someone using their Twitter handle, or that's essentially their Twitter username. So the interesting thing about Twitter is that in most cases, you don't need permission to follow up anyone. That's not really the idea of it. So everyone's accounts are wide open, and they want more and more people to be following them. So you can follow Katy Perry, you could follow Barack Obama, and you can even tweet at them. So you can say something that directly goes to their account. Of course, this doesn't mean that they'll respond because they're getting millions of these tweets, but Twitter still gives you that ability to communicate with virtually anyone. So another way of thinking of this is if you're at this kind of analogy of a party, you might picture a celebrity being swarmed by thousands of fans, and of course you can go join the fans and shout something at the celebrity, and that's kind of one of the ways Twitter works, is that you can communicate to these people. But the way you also use mentions or using people's Twitter handle is just to bring them into a conversation. So if it's someone you know well and you want to make a comment and kind of direct it at them or let them know that you're talking about something they're interested in, you can feel free to use their Twitter handle. All right, so to get started, you're going to go to twitter.com, and when you arrive there, you're going to see a screen that looks something like this, although the background photo tends to change from time to time. So if you haven't already created an account, it's very easy to sign up. So you just go there and you write your full name, I believe it's right here, your full name, your email address, and password. And once you attempt to sign up for the first time, it's eventually going to ask you to choose a username. And this is what I was saying the Twitter handle is. So, and that's the one, you might have seen it before. It's a name that's preceded by the @ symbol. So for Remax of Western Canada, our Twitter handle is @RemaxWesternCan. So when you initially set up your account, you can always change your name later on. But there's a couple things to keep in mind while choosing a Twitter name. The first suggestion I'd say is to keep it relatively short if you can. The reason I say this is because once we get into, or once you begin using Twitter, you're going to see that when you send out a tweet, which is a message, you are limited to 140 characters. You might have heard that before. You have very little space in these tweets. And if you're hoping people are going to mention you on Twitter, which is often your goal, you want to be part of conversations, a long Twitter name is going to give them less space for writing a tweet. And when you only have 140 characters, every character is valuable. So if your username is taking up 15 characters, that's a sizable percentage of their tweet. So if you can keep it shorter, that is ideal. Another tip, and this one's less important, but that I would suggest, is that you avoid putting numbers at the last end of it. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second, just making sure the sound is still available. Is everyone able to hear me still? Someone can comment if the sound is available. I have one comment here that says that the sound cut off. Oh, sound is fine. Good. Glad to hear it. All right. It's back. It cut out 2 times. Oh, I gotcha. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen again. I'll try to speak up a little bit. All right. So going on with this, so the second suggestion for choosing a Twitter name is that you might not want to have a bunch of numbers on the end of it. And the reason I say this is there are spam accounts on Twitter from time to time, and sometimes these tend to have a bunch of numbers on the end of it. Or if you try to follow someone, they might see your account and see all these numbers at the end. They might wonder or be curious if it's a spam account. That one's less important, but still something you might want to keep in mind. A last tip I'd say, and this one is important, is that if you can, keep your Twitter name or your Twitter handle related to your business or your own name. And this way it makes it relatively easy for people to find you on the site. So after you choose a Twitter name, the next step Twitter is going to have is it's going to ask you a few more questions, such as what you're interested in, and it'll also give you a list of people to follow. Now, it's worth taking a few minutes to scroll through the list, and you're going to see that on Twitter, all of your news on your Twitter feed is generated by the people you follow. So you choose where your information is coming from. So it's worth it to take a few minutes at the beginning and try to find some accounts maybe they're real estate related, maybe some of your clients, those types of things, because that essentially is going to be the news you're getting on your homepage. And I definitely suggest following RE/MAX of Western Canada's Twitter handle. That's at RE/MAX/WesternCan. And one of the reasons is because we make an effort to put out content that you can repurpose to your networks as well. So if you're following us and you see a tweet we send out that you think, hey, this would be great to share with my followers, it's really easy for you to do that. All right, so the next slide here. A good first step when you get going on Twitter, the very first thing I suggest is updating your Twitter profile. So the profile can be accessed by clicking on your photo. So right now it's an egg, and that's what it's going to look like when you start Twitter. It just is the replacement for not having a profile photo. One thing that is kind of known amongst Twitter is if someone has an egg, it means they're probably not overly using Twitter, they're not on the site tons or something like that, or they haven't taken the time to complete their profile. To be honest, it kind of shows laziness of sorts. So I would suggest very first thing when you get your account set up is setting up your profile. Or if you have an account already but you haven't got around to doing it, it's definitely a good idea. So once you click on this button, there's going to make a drop-down menu, and it'll say View Profile, and that's how you get to this screen. And when you first start Twitter, it's going to look almost exactly like this. So this arrow here shows where the Edit Profile button is, and Twitter makes it really simple for you to go in there, and you're going to change a few things. So the first one is this big chunk of blue here. That's going to be called your header photo. Okay, and so you want to put something there's a lot of space for a good wide image there. So depending, maybe you have a picture of your office or something like that, or something you like doing for fun even. It's always good on social media to keep it light, not too business focused. So whatever you think will work well there. You can also change this square photo, which is called your profile image. And then Twitter will also allow you to fill in a few more things under here. Right now I don't have that text that appears, but that's your bio that goes right here, and then you can also have a link to your website, different things like that. So a couple tips I'm going to give you for customizing your profile. First off, Twitter recommends that your header image, so this big blue one, is 1500 by 500 pixels. And that's kind of going to give you the best resolution, the best look of an image there. For the profile photo, the square one, it's 400 by 400. And the last tip I'd give is just be a little creative with your bio. You want it to be informative. I think you have 160 characters to work with on your bio, so make it short and sweet. Let people know what it is that your account's all about. But if you go through Twitter and you look at other people's profiles, some people are pretty creative about what they write there, so just maybe put a bit of thought into that. So really, when we talk about Twitter, the Twitter homepage is where most of the action happens. Now, I know anytime you get into a new site or a new social media, it can be overwhelming. There's these buttons at the top. Where do I need to be? Where's the action happening? Well, the homepage is where most of, I'd say 90% of your time is going to be spent on Twitter. So rather than think of this as an entire website you have to navigate, maybe just for starters, think of it as a couple pages, and this is one of the main pages here. So this is the part where I'm going to transition into our actual Twitter account. Just want to make sure. And I think I have the audience view there. I think we're looking all right. We can see the screen. Perfect. So this is the Twitter account. Maybe just if anyone can't see the screen, let me know. But I think it's fine. So this is the home page. Now, the beauty of Twitter is, like I mentioned before, you have control over where your news comes from. So the tweets that show up on your news feed, and that is this middle section here. So here you see there's view 53 new tweets. So it's constantly updating, and if I click this, it's going to repopulate with all the new tweets. But this is just your constant news feed, your news flow, and this is controlled by who you follow. So here you see that RE/MAX of Western Canada is following 104 people. So essentially what that means is 104 people, what they tweet and what they retweet and what they send out, that creates our news feed. All right, so one of the questions that comes up when you have Twitter is, who do you follow? Who can you follow? Well, Twitter on the homepage makes it easy here. In this top right section, there's a space that says who to follow. And you can check a few things. You can look for popular accounts, which is celebrities, basically accounts that have tons and tons of followers. You can find your own friends or people you might be connected to, and this is done through email, and there's a few other ways. But once you start following people on Twitter or businesses, Twitter's going to suggest people you might want to follow as well. And so for us at RE/MAX of Western Canada, obviously we're going to get a lot of real estate type of suggestions that come up. And if you click up here on View All, it's a huge list of suggestions. So this can be really helpful, to be honest, just kind of getting started on creating your news feed and seeing who you should be following on Twitter. So I'd say there's two basic elements to Twitter in terms of communicating. One is what you do with other people's tweets. That's the first one. The second one is sending out a tweet yourself, and we'll get into that. But I'm going to start with what you do with other people's tweets. So the interesting thing about Twitter is that, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I can stay, for the most part, on top of my Facebook news feed. It takes a bit of time every day, maybe checking it for 10, 15 minutes, but essentially I can see all the stories that have happened in the last day. Twitter, especially if you're following a couple hundred people, that's almost impossible. I got really overwhelmed when I first got a Twitter account because I was so stressed out trying to read every single tweet that was sent out from people I follow. And it's just not realistic, to be honest. And there's different ways of trying to find something you're looking for. Up here, Twitter has a search function, and that's where you can search users or hashtags, things like that. But essentially, you can see the latest things that are happening. So perhaps you're on the train or riding in a car, not driving, of course. Maybe you're a passenger in a car and you have a couple minutes and you're just scrolling through what's happening latest on Twitter. That's maybe the only time you're going to really try to get through much of this feed, but don't be overwhelmed if you have trouble staying on top of all of it. So every time you get a tweet, you have an option. You can choose to do something with that tweet, or you can just read it, and that's it. And that's what you're going to do with the most part. You just read, and okay, that's interesting. But sometimes there might be a tweet that piques your interest and that you want to do something a bit more with. So for example, here's an article by The Province, and maybe I have a thought or I want to comment on this tweet. Well, I can press reply right here, and basically it pops down, and down here in the field you see that The Province's Twitter handle is already written there. So if I wanted to make a comment on this article that they posted, I could just type in whatever text I want here, interesting article, or maybe my thoughts regarding it, and then I can tweet that out. Just so you know, that replying to a tweet like that, it's going to go in a little subcategory underneath. So anyone can still see that you tweeted that if they look for it, but it is going to be directed right at The Province. Your next option, which is far more common, is retweeting. So it's this button right here that says retweet. And what a retweet does is it takes someone's tweet and it sends it to your whole audience. So if I took, so right here, for example, I might not be following Bell Let's Talk on Twitter. We don't. RE/MAX of Western Canada doesn't. But we do follow Jana Hefford. And we see that Jana Hefford retweeted this tweet here. So essentially, it's taking something that's of interest to you and rebroadcasting that to your entire audience. So it is helpful, and once you get going on Twitter, you will see that a lot of people use the retweet function. A third option you have is this, and it's called favorite. So for those of you who are familiar with Facebook or perhaps Instagram, you have an option to like something. So if somebody posts something that's exciting, it's good news, you can click the little thumbs up and it's a like. And that's one of the functions of favoriting. It's a little star. So if there's something that somebody says and you really like it, you can click favorite, and that's one way to do it. But favoriting actually has another function that some people know of and use. Others don't have a clue that this is what it does. But if you click favorite to a certain tweet, so let's pretend there's a different article that I want to read later, I can click favorite, and it's going to actually index it for me. And I'm going to show you that later, but it indexes it for you on your profile page. So if you don't have time to read something, but you're saying, oh, I'll never find this in the future, I can click favorite, and then it kind of saves it for you. But like I say, favoriting is also used to show that you like something. You may have also heard of what's trending. So more and more social media sites are using different trending functions. And Twitter was one of the first to really make trending popular. And here you see we have a list of Canada trends. So here we have Toronto, Canada, Marshawn Lynch. There's a few different things that are trending in Canada. And this is updated by the moment, and it's what most people are talking about. Now the beauty of Twitter is you can customize this. So if you click change right here, you'll see that there's another little menu that pops up, and you can change. So I could make my settings whatever is trending in Vancouver. I could change it to what's trending in Calgary, or even worldwide. It's my choice. So that's kind of a nice function to customize it that way. But probably the big question most people have is, how do you compose a tweet? It's a little intimidating. Twitter language, the way people use Twitter, it's different than other social media sites sometimes. And that's one of the first questions. How do I send out a tweet? What should I say? What is a hashtag? What is a Twitter handle? Well, we kind of went over those, but the first comment I'd make is that in terms of what to post on Twitter, it's the same with any social media. I think you want to be aiming for relevant content that your followers will find interesting. So as you see, as we scroll down this actual Twitter page, there's a lot of photos, there's a lot of links to articles. Some tweets are just comments, and these are all fair game in Twitter, whatever you want. But just aim to be posting stuff that's relevant, so people will want to follow you. When you send something out, people will say, hey, that's some information that I appreciate happening. Now, when you click on the message button, so this is where you send a tweet. You can click up here, or there's another button that says tweet. If you click here, it just pops up a little area that says compose new tweet. So really, like I said before, you have 140 characters. And once I start typing, you see that that number goes down. And Twitter will alert you if you're over 140 characters. It'll turn red, and it'll say you have to take away some letters or some numbers. I could put anything out as a tweet. I could say, having a great day. That's a totally acceptable tweet. So just because some people use hashtags and Twitter handles and links and photos doesn't mean you have to. There's no rule about specifically what you have to tweet. But think of hashtags and all of those things as tools that you can use. So an example of a tweet that I could send out right now, and I will, is, bear with me here. So a good group for our Twitter 101 webinar today. Stay tuned for the recording. And then I'll use a hashtag, RMX Social. That's the hashtag that we've been using on the PowerPoint. So the tweet is a good group for for our Twitter 101 webinar today. Stay tuned for the recording. Hashtag RMX Social. So I just click that, and that tweet is posted. It gives you a little alert up there. So you'll see in a second that we can actually see that tweet when we go to our profile. But that's sent out. So it's really easy to send a tweet. And another thing just to keep in mind, whereas Facebook, you might only post 1 or 2 things a day. Twitter, some people post 10 things. Some people post 5. Some people post 50. It's a lot more acceptable to post more often on Twitter, so that's just another thing to keep in mind. And here you see on our news feed right now, REMAX of Western Canada, a good group for our Twitter 101 webinar today. Stay tuned for the recording. Hashtag RMX Social. And actually, if we click right on that hashtag, oh, there we see Scott. Appreciate that, Scott, using the hashtag. Look out, Twitter, here I come. I like it. Appreciate the shout out. But that's essentially what a hashtag does, is that it creates a spot for this conversation to be happening. So it's very cool. So the second tab that I'm going to show you, like I said, the home page is really where the magic happens. This is where most of your action is going on. But another page to be aware of is your notifications page. And here you see we have the little number 1. So that means since we've started this webinar, something's happened on our account or related to our account. So here we go. Our notification is that there's a new follower. So someone new has followed us. Notifications are great because they tell you anytime someone mentions you, if they retweet something that you've sent out, if they favorite something. It's just basically alerting you when any action has happened that relates to you. So as we go down the list, you see at first, okay, anytime someone follows us, great. Twitter lets us know on the notifications page. The next one, this was a tweet we sent out. It was at Prince George Cougars fans. Enter the hashtag Remax Home Team Contest and win 10 tickets to an upcoming game. And here's the link to enter. So the Prince George Cougars chose to retweet this. So they took this message and they sent it out to all of their followers, which is great because it's getting our message even further. And Twitter notifies us that this happened. Here you see that we were mentioned in a tweet, and this person, John Patterson Music, chose to favorite that tweet. So like I say, anytime any action happens related to you on Twitter, you're going to find out about it on the notifications page. The messages, I'm not going to click on because that's a little more private. That's like email messages in a sense. You still only have 140 characters, but the difference between a message is that it's not broadcast to anyone, or to everyone, sorry. So on Twitter, anytime you send something out, even if you're using someone's Twitter handle, expect everyone to be able to see it because they can search for it. People can find anything you post on Twitter. But a direct message, that's one thing that is a little more private. That's sent like a personal message to someone. The Discover tab, personally I don't use this as much, but here the example is tweets, what's happening now tailored for you. So this is kind of Twitter's recommendations on news or tweets that you might be interested in. Okay, and the last page I'm going to take you to is the Remax of Western Canada profile. And these, like I say, these are probably the top 3 pages you're going to visit. The home page, number 1, the notifications, number 2, and your own profile page, perhaps number 3. So as I mentioned before when I showed you the kind of the blank profile, it's kind of boring, not a lot happening. But you can really see once you start to add a bit of photos, or a few photos, pardon me, it really livens up the page, and it shows people that you're active on Twitter. So this is the header image, this housing market outlook, and we've got the profile image here, and this was the bio I was referring to. So Remax of Western Canada's official Twitter page, industry news, event info, motivation, and all things Remax. Now you can take that that space for your bio and write whatever you want. You can make it even snappier if you want, anything like that. So here, what's going to be defaulted is a list of all the tweets you've sent out. So here on our page, you see that our last tweet was this one, a good group for our Twitter 101 webinar today. Stay tuned for the recording, hashtag RMX Social. Scrolling down, you see another cool thing about Twitter that I forgot to mention actually is anytime you put a YouTube link, the actual video can pop up. So people don't have to click the link and go all the way to YouTube. They can watch the video. It's embedded right within the tweet. Here you've got some Monday motivations. You click on the photo, things like that. So this shows you all of the tweets that you've sent out. And as I mentioned before, when you favorite something, it's indexed, and this is where you can find that. So if you click on favorites, this shows you all of the things you favorited. So if you favorited something so that you want to reference it later, you can find it in this simple list here. Okay, so we're going to go back to the actual PowerPoint presentation now and just kind of wind up with a few last tips. I don't want to take up too much of your time here. There are a few things that I advise not to say on social media. One thing, and there is a bit of debate about whether or not writing listings on social media is okay. It might be. All I'm suggesting here is not to just solely put your listings one after another, especially not all at once. And I think that's a general good rule for Twitter as well. If you are putting out tweets, try to space them out a little bit. Don't just post everything at once because you've got to think about your followers. And when they're looking at their Twitter feed, their news feed, they don't want just a bunch of your messages in a row, especially if they're about something random. But if you're here and there putting in little interesting pieces of content, they're going to appreciate that, and it makes part of their news feed without cluttering it. So I've seen some really, really bad examples of agents or different offices that have just put literally 100 listings in a row and just posted them all on Twitter at once. And personally, I think that's a bad idea. It doesn't look great, and it might annoy people who are following you. Another tip of what not to say on any social media, but Twitter as well, is be aware that anyone on Twitter can find and read tweets that you send out, which is great, to be honest. That's a great thing, but you just have to use a little bit of, I guess, common sense when you post something out. So you're representing your business, the RE/MAX brand, so just think twice before perhaps sharing a view on a controversial topic. On Twitter, these happen all the time. You get these conversations and people replying, and in the moment, it's really sometimes difficult not to post your opinion. And it's not that you're not right. You might absolutely be right. But just think about you're representing your business, and if other people have a differing view than you, you might be shooting yourself in the foot a little bit if they have this differing view, and then the next time they go to do business, they say, hey, I don't know if I want to deal with this individual. So just something to think about. Another thing, as I mentioned earlier, a great idea to follow RE/MAX of Western Canada's Twitter account. Especially one of the tough things is coming up with content and what you should be sharing with your audience. And we try to make an effort to share interesting articles, anything that other people might find helpful or beneficial. So if you're following us, it's almost like a bit of a shortcut sometimes, and it allows you to just find some content and repurpose that to your networks. Another piece of advice, encourage people to follow you on Twitter. At first, it might be a little discouraging. Your list of followers might be relatively low. You might only have 5 people following you, and you might be putting a lot of effort into the tweets that you're putting out, and only 5 potential people are getting them. So just make sure you put in an equal amount of effort into letting people know you're on Twitter. If you have a newsletter, maybe you put the little Twitter symbol within the newsletter or a link to your account on your website. There's different ways to be creative and make sure that your audience is growing so that when you do put the effort to send out a tweet, people are actually seeing it. All right. So that brings me toward the end of the webinar. Hopefully, I appreciate everyone being patient, first off. I know we had some technical difficulties, but just a few takeaways from today's webinar. So the first off, if nothing else, just remember, once you start Twitter, take the time to create a strong profile. Use nice images, at least high enough resolution images, and produce an interesting bio. The second tip, the Twitter homepage is where most of your time will be spent. So please don't get overwhelmed when you try to sign up to Twitter. Any new social media site can be a little scary at first, but just break it down that the homepage is really where most stuff's going to happen, and your news comes from those you follow. So think carefully about what accounts you want to follow. And another way to think about it is the more great content that you get in your Twitter feed, that's easy stuff to retweet to your network. So that might be another source of content for you. And no matter what social media site you're on, be sure to post content you believe others will find interesting. So I think it's just worth asking yourself, if I was in their shoes, would I want to read this before you post something? All right, so that brings me to the end of the webinar here. I just want to thank everyone for taking the time today to tune in. Once again, if you have any questions at any point, you can reach me by email. It's wpatterson@remax.net. You can also phone the head office here. It's 1-800-563-3622. Once again, my name is Wade Patterson, Social Media Communications Coordinator with RE/MAX of Western Canada. And thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you have a great day.